question about why I chose, in the namesake, why I chose The Overcoat by Nikolai Gogol as the story that the father character, Ashok in the namesake is reading. Actually, the answer is no, but it was a happy coincidence because the entire novel was inspired to me by once going to Calcutta and meeting a little boy named Gogol. So that was the original seed for the whole story, and I worked from that. And so then when I invented my Gogol and was trying to create his life, I then wanted to explain, first of all to myself and then to the world, for the world within the book, why he had that name. And so I had his father being a very devoted reader of Nikolai Gogol. No, it was, as I said, a happy coincidence because the story is so wonderful and about, yes. This question is about my writing process, and I never can really answer it because every story has a different genesis and comes to me in a different, there's a different aspect of it that I have to begin with and to go with. So, the story I read from today started many years ago, and just sort of trying to remember a certain time in my own family's history. The first year that they lived in the United States, we lived in Central Square, Cambridge, and we just lived there for 1 year. But I remember, well, I don't remember, but my mother and her good friend, a woman who lived with us, always told a story when I was growing up about a guy, a grad student, who literally came up one day in Harvard Yard, someone tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Excuse me, are you Bengali?" And that story always, it's one of those anecdotes that really, it's part of my family mythology. So this story kind of grew out of that anecdote, and the details of it are very much imagined and invented, but that was the origin, if you will. And then, so a lot of times it's just a little thing from my past or just my family's past or something overheard or something like that, and then I'm able to build something around it.
A lot of the characters in your book, professors or students, according to what your parents did or do?
Yeah. This question is about why there are so many professors and students in my work. My father's a librarian at the University of Rhode Island. I grew up in a small town in Rhode Island. In fact, just today I've had a very wonderful reunion with some neighbors of my family's. They lived across the hallway in a housing complex called the Faculty Apartments, and they lived right across the hall. And there was a daughter, Anique, who was my age, and a younger boy who was closer to my sister's age, and our parents were friendly, and I had just the sheer pleasure of just meeting them a little while ago. But that was my childhood. We lived in the faculty apartments. Our friends lived in places called Graduate Village, and so I'm very much an academic kid, and most of the people I knew growing up were involved with the university in some way, and even beyond that, I think because my friends had such a broad network of Bengali friends living in the United States, and because so many of them were in this country because of some sort of academic merit, that they came to study, to earn their doctorates, to teach. Many of them remained academics themselves, but almost all of them had some sort of formative passage through a university in this country. So I think that's why they just keep popping up. It's very much the world that produced me.
Your past
this is a question about sort of protecting people's private lives and real lives while drawing on them, and I think it's because I really do just use them as a leaping off point, and you know, so I think that, for example, you know, no one can recognize. I mean, everyone is very heavily coded, or you know, they're amalgams of 5 different people, and sometimes they just don't exist at all in real life. Sometimes they just come out of my imagination, but I think those that do, I mean, I think really the people who can recognize themselves most in my work are my mother and father, whom I write about in many different guises, and I write about different aspects of them in a lot of things that I've written so far, and thankfully they've been really very tolerant so far of what I've been doing. So I've been lucky.
Can you speak about your experience putting your story into film? About different, you know, how it was cast and designed, and you know that.
This is a story about making the movie out of the Namesake. I really had very little to do with it, to be honest. I was very excited by the project, and when Mira Nair approached me, I was very excited and humbled, and just really, I had admired her for a long time. I knew that she was a very deeply talented, original filmmaker, and I was just thrilled to bits that she wanted to work with my book. And so I gladly surrendered it to her, and she gladly embraced it and made it her own, and that really is how it happened. I mean, she always kept me informed, but also, you know, she never needed to come to me for any sort of approval. I just trusted that she would do what she had and needed to do, and I was just so happily surprised at the end. I was very pleased with the result.
Was your growing up or your years in your family like the traditional family, did you hear read about some of your stories? You were the first generation.
Yeah, this question was my upbringing like many of the characters? Yes, it was. I mean, it wasn't exactly, but more or less. I mean, you know, this story, for example, you know, it's fiction. This didn't happen in my family's life. But on the other hand, I could very, very easily imagine certain elements happening. For example, you know, and to go back to the previous question about university upbringing, I mean, every year, I think even now, my parents have been there for 30-something years, and you know, at the beginning of every semester, they'll seek out, you know, who are the Indian students coming to the campus. We're going to call them up. We're going to invite them over. We're going to make them feel at home. We're going to cook them their first meal, and all of that. You know, they have this gesture always, and so the idea of someone kind of finding us and just sort of, you know, becoming a quasi-member of my family is something very easy for me to imagine, because it did happen in different ways. And I mean, I think I wasn't related to anybody in the entire United States of America apart from my parents until my sister was born, and by then I was already over 7. So it was a very intense kind of way to grow up when you know that you are very much alone. And so I think these other people, these other friends, became members of our family in these ways. And so the characters I write about, I think, do draw on that general type of experience. I always